Hey guys, today we are driving a very clean, very low mileage AP1 S2000. This is a 2003, the last year of the AP1, last year of that iconic 9,000 RPM redline. As many of you know, I own a 2001 Honda S2000 with about 147,000 miles on it. Today's video, we're going to talk about what it's like driving a low mileage, very clean, pristine, complete stock example versus my ownership with my car. Is it worth buying and spending quite a bit more money to get a really clean low mileage example, or is it worth finding maybe something that's a little bit higher mileage, a little bit rougher around the edges? First, let's walk you guys around this car. This is owned by a viewer of the channel. Really appreciate him letting us take the keys to this today. We have 19,272 miles, and because this is a 2003, we can see a few differences in this interior. Slightly upgraded sound system. We've got some of these aluminum-like bezels around the speakers, the tweeters, the door handles. This is all leather here in the middle, whereas mine is fabric. There's your radio. All the same controls here on the sides. His engine start button is red. Mine has faded to pink. Other than that, this is a completely stock S2000 aside from a different shift knob. It is absolutely gorgeous in here. These seats are in perfect condition. And on the outside, it's even the same color as mine, Silverstone metallic. We're on the factory set of 16-inch wheels with Firehawk Indy 500 tires. This thing just runs like a top. It's so smooth, so quiet, it purrs like a kitten. The 6-speed manual transmission is one of the best in the business, and I love this Silverstone metallic. The way it picks up light, the way it just looks a little bit more subdued and less flashy than some of the other colors like the red, like the yellow. Let's pop the hood. Look at this 2-liter VTEC 4-cylinder from Honda. The legendary F20C. Makes about 240 horsepower, revs to 9,000 RPM, and I think is one of the best driving experiences that could be had today. This car is just one of my favorites that I think I've ever driven. The owner bought this completely stock. He did the airbox modification, put a K&N filter in there, replaced the battery, and it's pretty much good to go. Look how clean this engine bay is. Oh, one more mod. He did do a Brake Master cylinder brace, which I've done on my car, though he didn't really feel that much of a difference just because this car is so fresh, so low mileage, and in such good condition. The valve cover still looks fantastic on this. Heat and age really start to cause those to flake, but since this car doesn't have a lot of miles on it, it's still in excellent, excellent condition. Front bumper plugs to cover the license plate holes. Aside from being an 03, this is basically the cleaner and lower mileage version of my 01 S2000. It's interesting seeing some of the tiny details in this car that are just fresh, nice, new almost. The headlights in my car are bubbling a little bit from heat. You can see a little bit in there, but overall everything just looks pristine and almost brand new on this car. I haven't put the top up on this yet, though on first impressions it all looks pretty good from here. Probably won't put the top up in this video just because S2000 is best enjoyed with the top down. Let's take a look in the trunk. All very clean, all very fresh back here too. Still got your jack, tire iron. Here's your spare tire back here. We have a set of 225/50 R16 Firestone Indy Hawk 500 tires in the back, and in the front 205/55 R16s. I really like these 16-inch wheels and tires for Michigan roads because you have just a little bit more sidewall and they can absorb potholes a lot better. All right, there's a brief walk around to this car. Let's hop inside and we'll go for a drive. This is just fantastic. Wow. It feels so good, so tight, so fresh. I mean, this is pretty much what an S2000 should have felt like from the factory. Well, if the question is, should you go out and buy a fresh example? If you have the money, yes, you should. This is awesome. And it's amazing how in virtually stock form, these cars are about as close to perfect as it gets. They just drive so well. You feel so connected to the driving experience. I know the AP2 adds a few pound-feet of torque here and there and a little bit more power lower in the rev band, but it doesn't rev as high. It doesn't feel as exciting. And I can't help but feel like this is how the S2000 was intended to be and to feel and to drive. It's so much more exciting and engaging, in my opinion, than the AP2s are. Brakes feel good. They're just Duralast AutoZone ceramic pads. Probably what I'll run on my car in the wintertime when we pull off the track day pads. Ride quality, mostly the same between the 2001 and 2003 cars. They tweaked spring rates and sway bars over the years, pretty much every year that the S2000 was in production. The rear spring rate might feel a little bit softer in this car, but it's really hard to tell. For the most part, this is going to have pretty much the same balance as my car does. The big differences that I'm noticing, it's a little bit easier to drive. The clutch feels like it should in this, whereas in my car, there's something wonky going on with the pedal feel. It could be the replacement clutch, it could just be age and wear and tear. And the power here feels fantastic. There's plenty of torque down low, and you rev it up into the higher RPMs, it just pulls so hard. Very little wind buffeting here on the highway. As a convertible driving experience, it's hard to beat this. The new Miata comes very close, but I still feel like there is a specialness, a raw feeling, an enjoyment factor to the S2000 that the Miata still hasn't quite achieved. Or a lot of it actually, is that engine. 9,000 RPM is addictive, and you just want to rev it out all the time. Alright, well, I might have to start searching for a lower mile example. I love my S2000, it's fantastic, but this is really, really, really nice to drive. Alright, we're going to go chase down some better driving roads. We'll get off the highway here where it's so noisy. I'll see you guys in a minute. It's this car, it's the Miata. These are the small, lightweight Japanese sports cars that you can really become one with. You feel so in tune and so connected to the driving experience. Whenever I drive an S2000, an NSX, I most recently drove an Integra Type R. In all those cars, you can really feel Honda's racing influence. Kind of like how you can feel it in a Porsche, in a GT3. There's something special, there's something magical about the way it drives and the way it is connected to the driver. From all of your inputs, to the chassis balance and the dynamics of the car. It really is a special driving experience. And this car is just about perfect. It feels awesome. All right, let's see how it handles. A little bit less grip on these Firestone 500s compared to the RE701 RSs on my car, but still, it's no slouch. I'll say it again, out of everything that I've driven, the S2000 I think speaks to me the most. In terms of price, value, performance, fun factor, driving feel. I would love to get a GT3 someday. But the prices have shot up so high, I really don't know if they're worth the money anymore. For the driving experience that you get, for the thrills, for the dopamine hit. I've also been really interested in an NA1 NSX. One of the best cars I've ever driven was a couple years ago in LA, in Malibu, in the canyons. It was an NA1 NSX with manual steering in '91, and it had shorty gears. And I would probably have that car over an S2000. However, I just drove another NSX with stock gearing, and the gearing was too tall. Second, you were in about 90 miles an hour. This, you can enjoy. You can enjoy this car at normal speeds. You can rev it out. You can take it up to 9,000 RPM in the first couple of gears, few gears, and you're not doing astronomically high speeds over the limit. The shifter here is perfection. It's the best in the business. It doesn't get any better. If you don't like this manual transmission, you should probably get an automatic. I love the way this engine revs. I love how nimble and tight and balanced this chassis is. Okay, yes, it's prone to a little bit of lift-off oversteer, but if you know how to work with it and drive it, and if you kind of treat this almost like a mid-engine car in some respects, and you respect its limits and put a set of sticky tires on it, it actually is pretty easy to drive and handles quite well. Just don't do anything dramatic mid-corner. That's the rule. This really does feel like an almost brand new car. It is amazing. From the low-speed drivability to the lack of vibrations and roughness to the drivetrain. My S2000 with 147,000 miles on it is a little bit more raw, I'll admit, but this is so nice. terms of horsepower. You can't really enjoy a faster car on the street. This interior is really well appointed. There's leather everywhere, really soft padding for my elbows. Right down here, touch points all feel fantastic. All of your controls are driver-centric. There's no stupid screen in the middle of the dashboard. You can't even see the radio. It's hidden behind a block-off panel. I love that. Ride's a little bit firm, but again, it's a sports car. I would maybe soften the rear suspension a little bit, maybe put on a set of springs from a later model year. And in the AP2 S2000s, they did soften that rear spring rate. A lot less prone to lift-off oversteer, but as a result, I kind of like the way this handles a bit better. It's so satisfying to drive because you can nail every single blip, every downshift. Bit of a tail wag there in second. I'm in both awe and just kind of a sense of peace right now because this is the car. This is the car that truly, I think I've kind of been searching for all these years in terms of a driving experience. It's part of the reason why I have a YouTube channel. What's the best car for me? What's out there that I like? And then how can I share that experience and that journey with everyone else who may like the same thing? Well, the answer is probably S2000. It's this, a Factory 5 Cobra replica, maybe a Porsche 911 GT3 if you've got the money for it. There's a lot of other great stuff out there. But I used to talk to so many owners and so many people who always come back to S2000s. All the inputs here are just perfection. This car drives so well. Shifter feels a little bit notchier, a little bit tighter than my car, but ultimately for having almost 10 times the mileage, my car feels pretty good too. Idle here is very smooth. Engine is so quiet. No clutch rattle like in my 2001. Engagement is smooth. The downstroke of the clutch pedal is light. This is kind of my frame of reference now for any other S2000 that I drive, because this feels just about perfect. It feels like it's brand new. I'll have to admit, I'm actually shocked with the difference between this car and my car. Everything about this feels so much nicer, so much newer, so much fresher, and just better to drive and to experience. Okay, mine's got some miles on it. It's lived a hard life. It's got some character. It's still a very fun, very raw driving experience, and I love it. But it's cool to experience what an S2000 is supposed to drive like, or how it drove from the factory. That's kind of what today's video has been about. just fantastic. Well, to answer the question that we posed at the beginning of this video, should you go out and buy a fresh, low mileage S2000, or should you go out and get a higher mileage, less expensive S2000 that might need a little bit of work, a little bit of maintenance? Well, ultimately it depends on your budget. My rule is go out and find the nicest example of the car you want that you can afford comfortably, and leave a little bit of wiggle room in there for maintenance after the fact, after the purchase. I think that's kind of time-tested, the best advice that I can offer. Do I want a fresher, newer, nicer S2000? After driving this, I gotta admit, I really do. The 2001 S2000 that I've been sharing with my buddy Tom has been fantastic. It's been a great kind of reintroduction into the car, and it's made me realize how much I love the platform and how it's kind of pretty much the sports car driving experience that I want and that I've wanted, that I've been searching for all these years. Would it be nice to have a fresher one? Yes, it would. Am I going to go and sell mine and buy a nicer one right now? Probably not, but I think I will eventually. And we have saved quite a bit of money compared to what something like this would cost. This is probably around a $35,000 to $40,000 car now, and our S2000 has cost us about $18,000 all in. We bought it for $12,000. It was worth about $12,000 when we bought it. Needed some work. Interior was pretty rough. We've put about another $6,000 into it in maintenance and reliability modifications, and refreshing the interior with new seats and just some things here and there just to make it nice. So for the money, it's kind of hard to beat the value proposition of what we have into our 2001 S2000. But at the same time, we wouldn't have had to do all that work if we would have bought a nicer example, and it still would have maintained the value that it was at, if not appreciated a little bit with time. And I feel like right now S2000s are still in a pretty reasonable price. They've dipped a little bit in recent years. Some of them have gone up. Of course, the nicest examples will always keep going up in value. The least nice examples will maintain and stay about where they are, maybe gain a little bit here and there. But it's just been fantastic to get behind the wheel of this car today. This has really been a treat. I think this is probably my favorite car that I've driven all year, and it just shows that I don't know if I'm going to get an ND Miata anymore. I think I might just get a nicer S2000 someday. All right, well, we won't leave Steve on empty. Anyway, guys, I think we're going to wrap up this portion of the video here. I'm going to go drive my car again real quick. We'll give you guys some quick impressions. But again, we filmed so much on that S2000 that you guys pretty much know the deal. Not too much has changed with that car, but it's really been a treat to drive this today. This has just been awesome. So thanks again to the owner. We'll see you here in a minute with my car. All right, we're back in my 2001 S2000. What's it like compared to the 19,000 mile example we just drove? Well, it's a little bit louder. I've done the UK exhaust mod on this car. And for some reason, the clutch in this car is a lot heavier. Maybe I need to bleed it again, but it's been replaced around 100,000 miles. It's never quite felt right, and it's also got a little bit of clutch rattle. Right there, you can hear it. But it is what it is. Shifts in this aren't as buttery smooth. There's a little bit more engine vibration, drivetrain noise. I just chalk it up to being a little bit more of a raw driving experience. Suspension in this car is pretty fresh, so that all feels about the same. Brakes are about the same too. The diff in this car also seems to hook up pretty well. I mean, ultimately, it's the same driving experience, just with some extra miles, a little bit of extra wear and tear. I still love this car. It is so good. Is it really worth selling it and buying a nicer version? I think yes and no. I would probably have to deal with less maintenance and issues over the years with a a nicer version, nicer S2000, but ultimately, I doubt the maintenance costs on something like this would add up to what the cost of a nice example would be, factoring what I have into this car. Engine still feels so good in this. Great power, great torque. We have the exact same modifications, the airbox mod. Maybe I picked up a little bit more power with the exhaust, rerouting, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I think the biggest difference is just the shifting, and I need to replace engine, trans, and diff mounts in this car. That's next. That's coming up very soon. And my steering wheel's cocked a little bit to the left. Even though the clutch feels strange in this car, it still bites really well. It's so good. Honestly, the driving experience here is just as fun, just as sweet. Someday, I may go out and buy myself a nicer example, but for now, S2000 is the answer. And I still love this one. What a riot. It's maybe not as sweet, not as fresh, not as crisp, not as easy to drive, but it still delivers on a fantastic ownership and driving experience, and it gets me there. So, if you do want to go out and pick up a higher mileage S2000, I don't think I'd necessarily steer you away from it. All I would say is that expect a few more maintenance costs, expect a slightly more involved ownership experience. Maybe you're going to be under the car a little bit more, tinkering with things, replacing parts. Parts are a little bit harder to find for these cars these days. Some things are discontinued, and with a nicer, lower mile example, you may not have to worry about as many things going wrong or needing replacement. So, all things to factor in. That said, there are plenty of beautiful low mileage S2000s out there, and they're probably going to stay that way. There's also some well-driven cars out there too, like this one with almost 150,000 miles on it. For me, kind of a sense of pride to be able to keep this car going and keep it running well and driving and enjoying it. And the F20C is just such an amazing motor that it really doesn't feel that different from the 19,000 mile engine in terms of power and responsiveness. It's amazing what Honda did with this S2000, with this platform. Anyway, we're going to wrap up this video there. Thank you so much for watching. At the end of the day, I'll say it again, get the best car you can afford and enjoy it. These S2000s truly are something special. Note my pink engine start button, faded with time. It's got patina. Love that UK exhaust mod.